today, lesson 29 and lesson 30. You will do lesson 30 tomorrow when you're doing your mixed practice. It's on multiplying by multiples of 10 and 100 and interpreting pictures of fractions and percents. So, multiples of 10. Here's the trick. They'll all end in at least a 0. Multiples of 100 will all end in at least 2 zeros. So, an example, a multiple of 10 would be like 10. Or 2 times 10 is 20, 3 times 10 is 30, 9 times 10 is 90, 11 times 10 is 110. So they're all going to end in at least a 0. Multiples of 100 all end in at least 2 zeros. So 1 times 100 would be 100, 3 times 100 would be 300, 14 times 100 would be 1,400. When we multiply by a multiple of 10, we may multiply by the digits in front of the 0 and then multiply by the 10. So for example, 25 times 30. I can do 25 times 3, the number before the 0, which is 75, and then multiply by the 10. So 75 times 10 is going to be 750. If I were to do it traditionally and write it out, remember I can have my zeros hang out to the right and just bring them down. So 5 times 3 is 15, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Checks out to be the same thing. If I'm multiplying by 100, I can do the same thing. So I'm going to do 25 times 3 again, which is 75. And then I'm going to do 75 times 100, which is the same thing as just adding 2 zeros to my 75. If I were to do it out this way, if I had 25 times 300, and I write my numbers hanging out like that, I can bring them right down. 5 times 3, we just did this, and I get 7,500. The one time that this can be a little bit confusing sometimes is with money, because with money we want to make sure that our decimal place, that there's 2 numbers behind it and no more. So let's look at what happens. We have $3.75 and I'm multiplying it times 10. I must shift my decimal place. Look at what that looks like. So really, this would be as simple as just moving my decimal place once to the right and adding a 0. But let me show you why. If I were to write it out this way, five times 1, 7 times 1, 3 times 1. So my decimal place was here, but with money, I always need only 2 places here to be my cents. So my decimal place is going to have to shift over once. And that's only because I shifted this over. If I had lined up my 10 here and multiplied it across, I wouldn't have to do that. But if you choose to have your 10 hang out, then make sure that at the end you shift your decimal place with money so you have 2 spaces here, since only the 7 and the 5 are behind the decimal. So my answer is $37.50. Notice that basically all that happened was my decimal place moved over once and went from 3 to 37, and I added a 0 there. Whenever you see red, make sure you write it in. However many parts a picture or group has is the denominator, and however many are shaded is the numerator of the fraction. Remember, denominator is on the bottom, numerator is on the top. So here's an example. What fraction is shaded? Well, first I'm going to count to see how many parts there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's going to become my denominator. And then I'm going to write how many are shaded in as my numerator. So 1/6 of this circle is shaded. It also might say what fraction is not shaded. So in that case, my denominator would still be 6, but I would count the parts that are not shaded for the numerator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fraction of what is not shaded would be 5/6. How about this one? First, I'm going to count how many parts there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is my denominator. Then I'm going to count how many are shaded. 1, 2, 3. Okay, fractions and percents are two ways to show parts of a whole. A whole is 100%. So for example, of this shape, if all of it is filled in, then I would say 100% is filled in. If only half of it is filled in, then I would say 50% is shaded. And in this case, if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, then each one's a quarter, and therefore a quarter of it is shaded, which is 25%. We can remember our percents if we connect it to money. Money can help us understand percents. So a whole dollar has 100 pennies in it and is considered 100%. If I've got a whole dollar, I've got a whole, and a whole is worth 100%. Half of a dollar is 50 cents, which makes sense, right? 50 pennies is 50 cents. So half a dollar is 50%. A quarter of a dollar is 25 cents. A quarter is worth 25 cents. And there's 4 quarters in a dollar, which is why each one is 1 out of 4. If I had 4 out of 4 quarters, I would have a full dollar, right? So 25 cents is 25% of the dollar. And 1/10 of a dollar, which is how much a dime is worth, or 10 cents, is worth 10% of a dollar. So our understanding of money can help us remember that 25 cents is like 25% and 10 cents is like 10%. Here's a sample question. 3 quarters plus 1 dime is what percent of a dollar? Well, let's figure out how much cents it is. So 3 quarters, 1 quarter is worth 25 cents. So let's say 25 plus 25 plus 25, because there was 3 quarters, plus 10, because a dime is worth 10 cents, means that I would have 25, 50, 75, 85 cents. So it would be 85% of a dollar. Here's an extra example, because this topic is kind of hard. A quarter and a nickel is what percent of a dollar? Well, a quarter is 25 cents, and a nickel is 5 cents, so they would be 30 cents, which is 30% of a dollar. This says number of quarters equals what percent of a dollar? So 4 quarters would be 100% of a dollar. 3 quarters would only be 75 cents, which is 75% of a dollar. 2 quarters would be 50 cents, which is 50% of a dollar. And 1 quarter would be 25 cents, which is 25% of a dollar. This problem says what percent of the triangle is shaded? It's actually no longer a triangle, but we'll say what percent of the figure is shaded. So I have 8 total parts, and 4 of them are shaded. And remember that we remembered that whenever the numerator is half of the denominator, that it's equal to 1/2, and we show 1/2 as 50%. So 50% of this figure is shaded. All right, now you know everything you need to know, so go ahead and get to work.